Rev up your engines!
Well, it looks like Rivian's exclusive deal with Amazon to buy 100,000 of these electric delivery vans is all over. You remember a while back, Amazon said they're going to buy 100,000 of these Rivian vans. And of course, the stock of Rivian went up. Well, now the stock of Rivian's going down the toilet. And with our coming recession here, Amazon's laying people off, and they're not having any interest in buying 100,000 of these electric vans anymore. They just informed Rivian that they're planning on buying 10,000, right? And that's what they're planning on. It doesn't mean they're going to. They could change their mind. Maybe they won't buy any. We don't know. This is kind of funny because I met a guy who works for Amazon, and he said the Amazon guys hate the electric vans that they already have. They have some of them. They said the things that go 90 miles, they run out of electricity. The warning lights come on all the time. Obviously, they're not perfected, right? And that whenever the Amazon drivers have a choice between driving one of these electric ones in their old gasoline or diesel delivery trucks, they pick the gasoline and diesel trucks. They say, on the electric ones because they don't work all that well. And Amazon, hey, they recently halted the construction of a new headquarters in Washington, D.C., and they've laid off 18,000 employees. Their promise of buying 100,000 Rivian electric trucks looks like that's going to vaporize like a lot of this electronic nonsense. And of course, the Rivian spokesman gives a bunch of nonsense about their relationship with Amazon. And I quote, "We're navigating a changing economic climate similar to many companies." In other words, they just lost the sales of 90,000 of 100,000 vehicles they're going to make for them. And I kind of laughed my rear end off at. The top investors on Rivian are T. Rowe Price Associates, the Vanguard Group, Capital Research and Management, Fidelity Management. These clowns bought a bunch of this stock. Boy, they're losing their shirts on it now. The stock was almost at 150. Now it's about 13 bucks. So all the money these investment companies put into, it just shows they don't know squat either. They just follow the sheep. Oh, electric cars, that's the future. Well, now that Amazon just cut their order from 100,000 to 10,000, the stock isn't going up anytime soon, that's for sure. People bet on this technology that's unproven, they're fools. Rising Forever 2023 says, my 03 Lexus ES330 has a P2118 code. Car runs kind of weird. I thought it was the throttle actuator since it's a throttle code, so I picked up a used one and it does the same thing. What could it be? All those codes, the P codes, are relatively generic codes. The P2118 code means there is a problem in the throttle actuator system, but often on those, it's a really stupid thing. It's a worn out fuse. Go get another fuse and put it in. It could easily be the fuse. They get old and they short out a little. They don't completely blow. But put a new fuse in. If that fixes it, you'll really thank me. Now, if it isn't the fuse, check the wiring going to the throttle. It's an electronic throttle, right? Plug it in, take it out, clean it, make sure there's no green corrosion. Look at the wires, make sure the plastic insulation isn't coming off and there's bare wires where you're going to have to rewire sections. And make sure all the connections from the computer to the throttle are super tight and don't have any type of corrosion on them when you do take them apart and look at it. Now, it could actually even be in your main computer because it sends the information there. But from my experience, a lot of times it's just the fuse itself, or wiring has either gotten damaged or corroded. That is an 03, it's 20 years old. And sometimes the wirings just start to come apart. The little plastic coating on the wires comes off and you'll have to rewire the bad sections. That's often what it is. You tried the throttle assembly, and they almost always last forever on those Lexuses. It's the wiring generally that goes bad. Or like I say, just the fuse. They can get old, corroded, put another fuse in. If that fixes it, voila, there's a cheap fix. GusBus 148 says, my mother-in-law is an 09 CRV and all the lights burn out too fast. It's got 120,000 miles. In the 6 months, I had to replace 3 headlights, 2 brake lights, and the dome lights about 10 times. There's obviously something wrong. Where should I start? All right, here's where you want to start. Numero uno, have the battery and alternator load tested. If either's bad, it can get voltage surges, which will pop them. So it could be as simple as you got a bad battery or a bad alternator. And of course, check the battery cables closely, because if they're loose, then they get voltage surges because the electricity has to go through loose connections and it builds up heat and gets voltage surges. It can easily be that. Another thing that it can be is if your ground wiring system is bad, the negative battery terminal grounds the entire car. Follow that to the engine, to the frame. If that's bad and you don't have good grounding, then all those things are going to get weird voltage because you need power for the headlights and ground. And if the grounds are really bad, sometimes it'll start using some of the power wires as ground wires, screw things up and burn the bulbs out all the time. So check them in that order. Check the alternator and battery first. Replace them if either's bad. Then check for loose connectors, corroded wiring. And if not that, check all the ground wires to make sure that both the body and the engine and transmission itself is grounded correctly, because if it isn't, you could also have problems like that. Angel H says, should I keep or sell my Charger? I just got an '08 Dodge Charger, 3.5 liter V6 with 213,000 miles on it from my aunt. She spent $8,000 repairing it in the past. Is it worth having or should I sell it? One, you're not going to get much for an '08 Dodge Charger that's got the 3.5 liter V6. Everyone wants the V8s, the Hemis, right? And you got a V6 with 231,000 miles. That's pretty much the end of its lifespan. If it runs decently enough now, I would advertise it and see what I could get for it, because it's going to be a money pit. It's already been one for your aunt. You spent $8,000 fixing it so far. I would not keep it as a reliable car with that kind of mileage. It's a shame it's not an 8, because if it was a V8, people always want them. Kids always want them. You could sell it for some decent money, right? But the 6s, they're not worth much, and with 231,000 miles, the engine's probably on its last leg, and so is the transmission. If I were you, if it runs okay now, I would sell it as fast as I can before you fall into the money pit and you start putting $8,000 of your own money into the thing. It's at the end of its lifespan, really, with that kind of mileage. I wouldn't put any money into it myself. And if you can get decent money for it now, hey, take it and run. Daywalker says, I'm sick and tired of relying on others to test my battery. They say it's good, but it dies later. I'll invest in a nice, accurate battery tester under $500. What do you think? There are many battery testers out there, right? My advice would be go to Amazon, and you said $500, under $500. Check it out. This is a Topdon. It's $47.99. It's a Topdon BT100. I got one. Works perfectly fine. I also have ones that cost $800. Right? And what I do is, how I test them is, I know the $800 one's good. I've had it for ages, right? And I compare the $800 ones with the Topdon, and it's pretty close every time. I've never had the Topdon say it was good when my expensive one said it was bad, and I've never had the Topdon say it was bad when my expensive one said it was good. It might be off 0.2 of a volt here or there or something, but it's certainly accurate enough. And there's nothing wrong with buying something like that that's less than $50, because you know how computers are. Every 18 months or something, they double their power. Well, my fancy machine, the $900 one, okay, that thing is 6 years old. Topdon's brand new, and in those 6 years, the computing processors got so much faster that they can now make stuff that the old ones did for a fraction of the cost. They work perfectly fine. These are all micro measurers. It's not like they're a load pile where they take a big giant load like the old ones did that had giant load bearers on them that would test them. These are all microvolt testers, and they work perfectly fine. It's less than $50. A Topdon one, I've got one. It works perfectly fine. Daywalker says, what are your experience with Duralast Gold batteries from AutoZone? My Interstate battery died, and I'm thinking of trying Duralast. Realize that there's only a few companies that manufacture batteries, right? Now, I have used AutoZone Gold batteries in the past and had decent luck with them, right? But like everything else, everybody is making stuff cheaper. Now, if you want a battery that's going to last, you want to get an AGM battery, absorbed glass mat. Don't get a regular battery, get an AGM battery. Now, AutoZone sells some AGM batteries too. The AGM ones last longer, they have more cranking power, they can sit longer periods of time unused. Let's say you don't drive your car that much, you definitely want to get one of those. Now, you're going to pay more, but it's a much more reliable battery. And like I've always told people, batteries are like eggs. You want fresh ones because they fill them up with acid. And once they fill them up, they start to deteriorate. So once they're built, they start to deteriorate just sitting there. So learn how to read the codes and don't buy one that's more than a month or two old. It'll say what month and year it was manufactured, and that's when they fill them up with the acid, right? Now, a lot of them are sneaky, and they don't say, you know, April 2023. They'll have codes, learn the codes at the store, say, when was this made? Show me how to read the code. And if it's more than a couple months old, preferably you want one that's a month old. But if it's more than a couple months old, I wouldn't buy it because it's sitting there rotting on the shelf. Learn how to read that stuff. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.